hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. My name is Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 251 of the Wannabe Clutter Free podcast. On today's episode, I am chatting with Stephanie O'Day, a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and coach specializing in slow living. Now, you might also recognize her from the Chaos to Calm Summit that I hosted in January, where she was one of the speakers and shared her wisdom on creating a life that feels more balanced and intentional. Stephanie has an incredible background in social work, early childhood education, and trauma-informed yoga, and she takes a holistic approach to slowing down and creating sustainable change. It's a really great conversation. I think you're going to love it, and in it we dive into what slow living really means, how to step away from hustle culture, and why setting realistic, sustainable goals is the key to long-term success. So if you have ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure to do more, achieve more, keep up with the endless to-do lists, well, this episode is for you. Stephanie has a way of making slow, steady progress feel doable without the guilt, without feeling like you're completely swimming upstream, even though it might be challenging at the time. But before we jump into it, I want to say thank you so much to you for spending time with me today. If you enjoy this episode, can you please take a moment to just click that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of the amazing conversations that I have planned for this year? And as always, thank you so much for being part of this community and making this podcast part of your weekly routine. If there is something you want me to cover, or you have a question about decluttering, organizing, or simplifying the different areas of your life, well, come on over and connect with me on Instagram. I am at Wannabe Clutter Free, or join our private Facebook community, the Wannabe Minimalist Family Group. And one last thing, if you want the show notes for today's episode, you can find them at wannabeclutterfree.com/the number 251. Again, wannabeclutterfree.com/251. All right, let's dive into it. Well, hi, Stephanie. Welcome to Wannabe Clutter Free. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled that you are here. We're going to be talking about slow living, and I'm excited to get more details about that and what that means. I think we live in a very fast-paced environment in society today, so I'm excited to get your take. But before we get into that, can you introduce us and tell us about what you do?
Sure. First off, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'm Stephanie O'Day. I write, coach, teach, and speak about all things slow living. And I do have a new book out. It's called Slow Living, Cultivating a Life of Purpose in a Hustle-Driven World. And I think that hustle-driven world part is why you and I have connected. The idea that you feel behind or what you're doing isn't good enough, and if you go slow, the world will pass you by, is a myth that I want to debunk a little bit. A lot of that is marketing hype and trying to get you to buy things. But when you're calm and you're in a good mood and you slow down, chances are there's a lot of good already right here and right now. So the acronym I like to use for slow is to simply look only within. And so when you do feel that kind of frantic feeling, as best you can, reset your shoulders, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What is happening right now in my brain and my body? And then act on that versus trying to quickly dismiss the feeling and click here, buy more, or drown out my sorrows in wine or something like that. And so I think that's the big part of slow living that probably if we all did, the world would be a happier place and you as a person would feel calmer and more content.
I absolutely love that acronym, though, looking within, because I do think we often look to others. We look to see, okay, how do I solve my problem? What's the hack, the tip, the thing that I can do to cram more stuff into this tiny box or this thing? And by tiny box, I just mean not a tiny life, but like just this moment, like this section of life that I'm living right now. How can I cram more into it to get more, to maximize? So yes, I'm really excited about today's conversation because I have definitely had these moments. in my life. And I still struggle with it, if I'm being honest.
You're right. And it's really not your fault. And when you think about it, the idea that someone else has the answers, this starts as early as like fairy tales, like Prince Charming is going to come and save me, or a fairy godmother. When I was little, I wanted Mr. Belvedere to fix everything. And it's just not real life. And when you acknowledge that you're the grown up in the room and you have the power to make it or break it, it can actually be scary. And it's easier to blame others and it's easier to think someone else has all of the answers. And if I just follow this specific system in this way, I too can fit in my skinny jeans and eat donuts all day long. But that's not real life. Real life is probs not you're gonna need to put down the donuts.
You can fit in the skinny jeans, but you probably don't get to eat the donut. Oh no.
One or the other. Yeah.
One or the other. Yeah, I love that. And I do think that that was a big realization for me, was that it looks like everyone else has it together or they know what they're doing. But in reality, I think we're all just still trying to figure it out. I'm in my mid 40s and I still feel like I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And so I think that was one of the bigger shocks for me too, was like, aren't I supposed to feel like a certain way? I felt like my parents had it all together. And they didn't, of course. Sorry, mom and dad. I'm sure you wanted everyone to think that. And that's fine. And I did as a kid. And that's the important part, right? I did at the time. Of course, I felt very taken care of and all the things. So it wasn't for that. It was just that I think I had that realization of just, oh, no one really knows exactly what they're doing. People excel in certain areas and definitely are experts in some fields, but that doesn't mean every single part of their life is together. And that was open. Yeah.
Yeah, I had that huge realization when I was the mom. And it's so silly because you're pregnant and no kidding, you're going to be a mom. But it's like the second day in the hospital, the nurse brings the baby after like getting checked in some way. And she goes, "Here, mom, here's your baby back." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm the mom. Like, this is me. I'm supposed to do all these things now." And I'm like, okay. And I don't know why, but for me, that was like that light bulb moment of this is it now, Steph. You've got to figure this all out because you are in charge of this whole other human. And you're absolutely right. The same way your parents wanted you to feel protected and safe and as if they had it all together, I now need to do this for my family, my future family.
Yeah, totally. And I'm a mom too. And it is that moment of, oh, yeah. And I also think now it's switched a little in my brain of, I want someone to mother me, right? I wish someone would come and tell me, like, okay, it's time to stop, turn the screen off. It's time to eat this yummy, healthy snack that I prepared for you, or this yummy dinner, or all these kinds of things. And I'm like, oh, that's me. Okay, that's me. I have to parent myself, which is fine.
It's funny. This past calendar year on social media, I've been putting out on Monday mornings, and I'm calling them love notes from mom. And it's because through the Slow Living podcast, I have people write to me and say things like, "Oh, I wish you were my mom." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'm just going to send out these little love notes." So, yes, I get it. I think everyone wants to be told they're doing a good job and wants to have their hair pet and feel that unconditional love. And so, the unconditional love you're hoping from a parent point, now it's time for you to have that kind of unconditional love for yourself. And it does start with slowing down because if you're feeling behind, if you're feeling frantic and in this like chaotic frenzy, you're not going to feel unconditional love for yourself. You're going to feel like you're doing it wrong or everybody else has the answers and they don't.
So good. I feel like we just like dove right in. This is a super fun conversation. I had all these questions planned and we're just like having this little coffee chat with your friend. I feel like I'm going to need this today. But before we get too far off of it, what was your story like? How did you end up getting to where you are? I think when we hear other people's stories, it helps us see a little bit of ourselves in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I first got started writing online in 2008, and it was with the Crockpot site. I had a New Year's resolution to use a Crockpot slow cooker every day for a year and write about it online. And that was because I was a stay-at-home mom and needed a legitimate way to make money at home. And so I had done a little bit of research and found that cooking sites had really tight SEO, which is search engine optimization. but I am not actually the best cook in the world. I like my crockpot. I like to plop it all in and push a button and walk away. So I had this aha moment. It was funny. It was after my husband's work Christmas party, and I probably had too much wine. I'm like, I should do this. And usually, because he's an engineer, I don't know about this stuff. And his response was, that's a great idea. And so I'm like, okay, good. So that first picture of me wearing glasses and my hair up hugging a crock pot that went viral, my husband took in front of the Christmas tree. But that website took off. It was amazing and wonderful. And from there, I wrote 4 cookbooks, spent time on the New York Times bestsellers list, got to go on Good Morning America and Rachel Ray a few times. And it just was lovely and amazing and fantastic until all of a sudden it wasn't. After a few years of doing this, I had this thought of, gosh, Steph, does the world really need another pot roast recipe? And it started to feel phony in my body because the way the internet works, and also actually the way cookbooks work, is you just change an ingredient or two and slap on a new name, and it's a brand new recipe. But I think we can all agree that pot roast is pot roast. Even if you put in liquid smoke or paprika, it's still pot roast, and you don't need to constantly reinvent the wheel. So I started feeling like I was ready for a shift. And then the Instant Pot hit the market. And my literary agent and book publishers wanted me to translate all of the crockpot recipes to the pressure cooker. And I bought one and I goofed around with it and I just didn't like it. I think the tech is neat. I like that you can cook a frozen chicken in 45 minutes. But for me, the reason I liked the crock pot was I could put it on in the morning. I was still highly caffeinated and coherent. And then I never had to think about it again. For me, it eliminated all decision fatigue and I just stayed out of the kitchen. I told them no, I didn't really want to write a pressure cooker cookbook. So I got fired. I got fired, Deanna. And that's when I had this voice of God. Just because you can do something fast, it doesn't mean you should. And that's when I unplugged from the internet for a while and really started meditating and thinking what my next chapter should be and really embraced the idea of slow living. And so I started the Slow Living podcast. And I think we're in our 3rd year now. And from there, I had enough proof of concept to sell the Slow Living book to book publishers.
I love that. Well, what I find so fascinating there is, first off, maybe both you and your husband had too much wine that night because he finally agreed. But hey, look, him giving you buy-in led to all the success, which is wonderful. I also love the realism there that you put out there, that you just didn't feel right continuing in something that didn't feel 100% to you. So I appreciate that. I really do. I think that's very scary for a lot of people to say, okay, I could be making more money. I could continue doing this. I could switch them all over to the Instant Pot, but it just didn't sit with you. And so I really appreciate you being authentic there with that. And then 2, it's interesting to me that the slow cooker wasn't really where the slow living movement for you started, even though they both start with slow. And I find that so fascinating because I'm not gonna lie, I thought they did. Because I do think I love that idea though of like how you said you're caffeinated in the morning, you could put it on all day, it doesn't take a ton of your time, but at the end of the day, you were able to nourish your family and do what you wanted to do with food for you. And yeah, so I just find that really fascinating. I really appreciate that. And then I appreciate that you listened to yourself and are bringing this different perspective of it doesn't have to be, because I do feel like things have just continued to escalate, right? Like things have just started to get faster and hustle more, and the bro culture that's all out and about. And this idea that we can see, we're voyeurs now into so many people's lives, quote unquote, because let's be real, I'm even showing up with makeup and hair, right, on this podcast. I don't show up first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. when my alarm goes off. So I think there is still a level of, I try to be authentic and real and tell you like how things are going without this whole, I have zero desire to be an influencer, right? But it's hard. It's hard to do that. So I really appreciate, it's just me getting back and saying, I appreciate that you're taking this different approach with it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it is tricky. And I'm glad you brought up bro culture because I live in Silicon Valley and it's prevalent here. And I joke with friends that Teslas are like pigeons, they're just everywhere and they do not stop at stop signs. And it's that feeling when everyone is doing something one way and you're doing something a little different, it feels wrong. It feels you're making a mistake. And so that sort of trusting my gut and my inner voice and intuition and going through it anyway is gratifying. And it does end up in the long run paying off. But I've definitely had people tell me that I'm leaving money on the table and go for low hanging fruit and that kind of stuff. And you too, since you work on the internet, I'm certain have come across a lot of shady ethics and morals, and that just it's not something I'm interested in the slightest. So this feels authentic to me. I am a huge goal setter, an achiever, and a really big dreamer, and have a good track record of obviously keeping to my New Year's resolution, but then also in my personal and professional life, I'm meeting and achieving goals. So that's primarily what I do now is I help people do that, but in a slow, steady, and sustainable way. Because when you're doing a whole bunch of big, like life-changing things at once, and especially when it's like goal setting or New Year's resolutions, too much, too big, too soon, too fast isn't sustainable. And that's when you feel burnt out. And it doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to be good enough. And that's just not a good feeling to have.
All right, well, let's hop into that. Let's talk about that because I think I've already alluded to the fact that yes, it's very hard to not feel that pressure that you need to catch up with the housework, decluttering, your life goals. You always hear don't compare your middle with somebody else's end, but that's also their middle. But why is my middle different than their middle? And how come they can get all this stuff done and they have two children at home and mine's a little bit older and why can't, like all this kind of stuff, right? All of this stuff starts bubbling up. So let's get into it. How do we do that?
Yeah, well, and I'm glad because you teach about decluttering, and who would have thought that decluttering would turn competitive? And yet it has. I'm like, well, I only have 8 things in my pantry. Oh, I have 3. I'm like, what? Who cares in the great big huge scheme of things? And I do a clutter-free home and minimalism. But first off, if you have the storage space to keep the things and you're not feeling overwhelmed or frantic, you're doing it right. So please, again, do not compare yourself to anyone down the street. It's so funny to me, but that's just the nature of the internet right now.
Yeah, it really is. I appreciate that too. Yes, it just can be realistic. Like, you do not have to show your house on Instagram. And if you love your house, that's great. If you are not overwhelmed by the stuff in your house, you don't have all these piles that are driving you crazy, then yeah, you're doing it right. You're good to go.
Yeah. And I will say, while it's nice to have things organized and know where everything are, there are lots of people who live lovely, wonderful, amazing lives with a messy linen closet. And so that part is a-okay. So one thing when we were talking about comparisonitis, and I think we all know that when you compare too much, that's what leads to despair. This book is filled with acronyms. And so I rewrote FOMO. I ended up actually rewriting it for my kids. As we all know, FOMO is fear of missing out. But I rewrote it for my own kids, and then I wrote about it in the book. And the new FOMO is to figure only myself out. Because when you take a deep breath and you really ask yourself questions like, what am I feeling right now? Like I'm scrolling Instagram and I'm feeling what? Envy? Anxious, sad, discouraged. So pay attention to that and then think, do I really want to be in Barcelona right now? No, probably not. Just really slow down and analyze the thoughts and the feelings that you're having. And again, if consuming media and doom scrolling and all of that stuff isn't serving you right now, then declutter that. That's the part to pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I like that. Figure only myself out, which is great. I have a tween now, so she's not going to get a phone until ninth grade. I'm putting it out there. She doesn't even have a watch yet. We're very cognizant of the fact that it is so difficult to avoid this comparison stuff. And as much as we can do to help her out, I think is great. But I love this idea. Yeah, I'm going to definitely talk with her about that today because it is really difficult. She's about to hit junior high, and it's such a difficult age where you are with all your other friends and you're trying to figure yourself out. And so, yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that acronym. But how can we balance making progress without falling into hustle culture? And I love that you are right in the mix of it so you can help us out with this because I think that's really difficult, right? We want to make progress, but we want to do it slowly. We want it to be sustainable, but yet we see everybody around us and maybe we feel like they're going faster than us. So how do we balance this?
Well, first off, whatever they're portraying might not be true because you never know what's actually happening in someone else's house. You only know what they tell you or what they show you. And so paying attention for you in the here and the now, and as much as possible, it gets thrown around a lot, but it is thrown around because it actually really works. But when you're counting your blessings and you're paying attention to the things you already have and not the things that you wish you have, you will immediately become happier because you're not thinking you're missing out. You're not thinking someone else has it better. Let's say you're feeling like someone is traveling more than you. Great. Maybe they're traveling more than you are because actually their marriage isn't all that great. Like you really just don't know what's happening. And then as far as for you, you've got to play your own game. I do suggest setting goals in all quadrants of your life. So health goals, relationship goals, finance goals, yes, home organization goals, and envisioning where do I see myself in the future. For me right now, I've got two kids in college and a high schooler. So where my like future daydreaming is what is it going to look like in the empty nest years? And then trying to create goals that will help bring that vision to life. So for me, I want to make sure that I'm fit. I want to make sure that I continue to feel healthy and good in my skin and my body, which means that probably drinking more water now is the right way to meet that goal. Deciding on purpose to do yoga, even when I don't want to do yoga, and those kind of things. Saving more than spending, saving for retirement, paying attention to that. Sometimes that means saying no to friends who want to go out to dinner or things like that and saying, no, actually, what if instead we cooked pasta at home and we still hung out, but we skipped the Italian restaurant, that kind of thing. So it's a little bit of delaying gratification. It is a big part of slow living. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're depriving yourself, but you're paying attention to what you really want in the future versus what you want right here, right now.
Okay, so I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to say it. Shiny object syndrome, right? I think it's very easy to get distracted. So, what are some of your tips for helping?
Yeah. So first off, unplugging is very helpful. Going outside, being in nature and paying attention. I have a daily journaling worksheet. I can send you the link. It talks about what is the next best thing for you to do right now to get you from where you are to where you want to go. And when you have that plan in place, it's easier to put the blinders on because it's not on my sheet. It's not on my planning guide sheet. So this is a guided daily journaling worksheet. Actually, we put it in your summit. It's just helpful because you now have this sheet where you have written down what it is you're doing. And then you take that and you start scheduling in appointments with yourself. Okay, so I had this idea at 7 a.m. when I was meditating and in a really good mood that I was going to do 10 minutes of yoga today. Okay, great. Where am I going to do this? Oh, I can do this at 2:15 in between calls. Great. Put it on your calendar. You now have an appointment with yourself. And when you don't know what the next thing to do is, that's when you're anxious. That's when you pick up your phone and you start scrolling. And that's when those feelings of inadequacy and envy come up. So I'm a huge proponent of time blocking. And when I actually work with my coaching clients, I ask them to time block everything so there's no white space on their calendar. So if they want to scroll Instagram, great. Put it on your calendar. Decide, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes today to scroll Instagram, and I'm going to do it from 4 to 4:20 while I'm waiting for gymnastics pickup. There, it's on the calendar. So when you're feeling itchy about it at 11 a.m., you're like, it's okay, Steph. I'm going to check in with my internet friends at 4 o'clock. It's all going to be okay.
Yep. And you're going to get fed the same things because it's not in chronological order anymore. So you'll get the same exact things at 11 a.m. at 4.
None of it makes any sense. No, every once in a while I shake it. I'm like, come on, I want something new here. I don't even know who this lady is. Stop telling me I want her.
It's so funny. So funny. Actually, I just saw a reel from the Holderness family, and it was like what it's like when you sit down to scroll. And she's her current self, and she's like scrolling and looking like, oh, and then all of a sudden it cuts to her, and she's put on a granny wig, and she's like, what time is it? It's like your whole life is gone because it's so easy to get caught up in them. These apps have been designed to be addictive and keep you on there and keep you scrolling. And they spend millions and tens of millions of dollars to do it. Yeah, absolutely. And right now, I'm like, maybe it's a little bit of resistance, right? It's kind of the way I'm resisting the current state of affairs. I'm trying to not be on social media as much.
I agree with you. And we had mentioned earlier that I actually really do live in Silicon Valley. And I do know people who work at Facebook and Apple, and they are doing exactly what you said and not giving their tween a phone until older because they know they're addictive because they help design them that way. Yeah, it is a real thing.
Yeah, so look at that. The people that actually design the apps are not giving their kids phones because of it. So what does that tell you? Yikes. Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to go back first off and just say thank you. By the way, that sheet that you have is phenomenal. I've used it. It's great. So yeah, I would love to be able to put it in the show notes if you have that available. So make sure you look for that.
Yeah. So I'll say the URL just right now, but it's stephanieoday.com and then /daily, DAILY. It's interesting. So I have some group coaching and one-on-one coaching, and every once in a while I'll get a message from someone and they're like, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, so did you do your worksheet? And they're like, oh, and then they go back to doing the worksheet for a while and it works. And it's funny, but it's a version of self-care and it's a version of paying yourself first. And when you are feeling frantic and overwhelmed and that chaotic feeling, the first thing usually to disappear is self-care because you think, I don't have time for this. And how on earth can I slow down Steph when there's too much to do and not enough time to do it? It doesn't make sense. And it really feels like an oxymoron and it feels like it's too good to be true. But if you could set a timer and spend 10 minutes with this worksheet, I promise you will set yourself up and your day will run smoother and you will end up finding bigger pockets of time that you didn't know you were missing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Your talk was fantastic at the summit. So those that have listened to this podcast know I host an annual summit. It's the Chaos to Calm Summit. And Stephanie was in our latest iterate and it was great. And the worksheet is very comprehensive too, and yet not overwhelming. I think when you say comprehensive, people are like, oh, run, am I going to have to like journal my entire life?
Yeah, 10 minutes. And one thing that's interesting with 10 minutes is people are like, I'm not done after 10 minutes. Like, that's okay. Like you can put it away and maybe come back to it at a different point. But I don't want perfectionism to get in the way of progress and just doing the thing. And especially like when it comes with time blocking and different things, I like to use the idea of a high school classroom. You're not going to finish your history book in first period. You're just not. But that's okay because you have first period every day. And by the end of the school year, you will have finished the history book. So please don't put things off because you don't think you have enough time. You can find time in your schedule for any large project when you break it up in 10-minute tasks. So 10 minutes is usually what I suggest with starting. And most people, especially if they're on the roll, continue to add another 10 minutes. But you know your calendar and you know what suits you best.
Yeah. And it's the same way like I approach decluttering or anything else. Like I think decluttering is very holistic. I think your stuff is an outward projection of what's going on inside and relates to so many different areas in your life. But you build up muscles. You get better at it. You get better at letting go, making decisions, figuring out what it is, bringing stuff into your home, purchasing the right things in the first place. But it doesn't start on day one, right? It doesn't, you don't just magically wake up and go, oh, if it were easy, you would already be doing it. If you knew what you were supposed to be doing, you would already be doing it. And I think this is just a great way for you to hone that energy and really zero in and focus on, okay, if I were to step back and take a really methodical approach to my day or my life, what would I be doing? And I think this walks you through it. Yeah, I think people should not be concerned about a quick 10-minute. And if there's a part where you're like, I don't know about that, then leave it blank for the day. And then maybe tomorrow, when you've worked through the rest of it, you'll be like, oh, okay, now I understand this piece or that piece or how I want that to relate to my life, because you will grow a little bit every day, which I think is the beautiful part.
And also, it's the idea that you're an actual human with ups and downs and all arounds. And you're not a spreadsheet, and you're not going to always show 1% growth in every area.
It's not a linear projection, whichever way is going up.
No, in every area. I know. I'm so annoyed at like hustle culture businessmen, personal development people who are like, if you don't better yourself by 1% every day, you're doing it wrong. No. Hello, hormones. Hello, sick child. Hello, overflowing toilet, and all of the things. And so when you have data such as this worksheet, you can realize, how come last Wednesday I got so much done? And then you realize, oh, it's because I was on day 15 of my cycle and today I'm on day 28 and I hate everything in the world today. So that's actually real. In acknowledging that and not beating yourself up for being a human is a huge part of slow living.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay. So, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that people face when they are trying to adopt a slower, more intentional way of life? And then how can they overcome them?
I think it's the idea that if everyone is going one direction and you're going the other, you might feel like you're doing it wrong, like you're a salmon swimming the wrong way, and acknowledging that and not dismissing the feelings of being uncomfortable or uncertain, but having hope and faith that if you give this a go for a nice amount of time, you will start to collect evidence that you're on the right path. The book is broken up into a 3-part kind of success formula. And so it's mindset plus action plus consistency equals success. And so the idea, when you're in a good mood, you're coming up with your action step. And so that's a big part of that journaling worksheet, is working on mindset. And then you're asking yourself, okay, what's the next best step for me to take? That's action. And then you're doing the things consistently that you told yourself you would do when you're in a good state of mind. The tricky part is when you feel uncomfortable or uncertain, people like to action their way out of problems. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to take a deep breath and really acknowledge and pinpoint what you're feeling right now. So if you're feeling like things aren't happening fast enough, maybe you just need to give it more time. But deciding to switch it up or try something new will always keep you feeling stuck. And so in the book and in my coaching clients, I use the idea of dieting because probably everyone has probably at some point has been on a diet. So if you have this idea that I'm going to be keto from now on, you're like all gung ho on keto. And after 3 days, you're like, well, that's not working. Now I'm going to be a vegetarian for 3 days. And that kind of thing. Nothing will work because you're trying to out action that kind of feeling of uncomfortableness. And I think we all know in this day and age, if you just stuck with something, eventually they're all calorie constricting anyway, and the weight would shift. So when it comes to consistency, how long? This comes up a lot. I like 30-day challenges. And it's checking off 30 days. And they don't have to be 30 days in a row. If it takes you 45 days to do a 30-day challenge, that doesn't mean you failed.
I'm like doing a heart. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, like who cares? Yeah, this isn't drugs or alcohol. You have not failed. It's fine. So actually, it's really funny. I want to circle back. I have quite a few coaching clients right now who are being sober curious. And so they are paying attention to how often they're drinking wine or that kind of thing. And they were treating it as if we were in like AA. I only made it 8 days. Now I got to start all over. And no, no, like give yourself a hug that you did 8 days without wine when you used to have wine every day. Great. Now keep going until you've hit 30 days, but it doesn't have to be in a row. And that's true with anything and everything. We do not live in a cookie cutter world. We do this, everybody is different and everyone's playing their own game. So please don't arbitrarily fall for rules made up by someone else. I want you to set your own rules and then follow through. And that's how you achieve consistency.
So good. Yeah. Clearly, I was enamored with that idea because it is hard. And most of the people listening to this are mothers, which means you don't live in a vacuum, right? You are not alone. Like it's not just you have to take into consideration everybody in your household, your pets, all the things are going to happen. I like to say life is going to life, and you have to give yourself some buffer and some grace. And if you're going to have your cycle, and if on one day things are just going off the rails and you trying to do a decluttering challenge or something is going to just send you over the edge, it is so much more responsible for yourself to just say, okay, day 15 didn't get done. I'm going to do day 15 on day 16. Today didn't exist. We're skipping floor 13 like they do in hotels. We're just going to skip it. And we're going to either come back tomorrow and restart. It's so much better to do that than to give up.
Yeah, the only thing what I don't want you to do is not giving up. So taking a day off, great. Taking 2 days off, great. The problem is when that turns into 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. So how do we get back into it when we hit something like that?
What I want to say is toughen up, Buttercup. Suck it up. Like it just is what it is. It's part of being a grown up. And it's not fun and it's not fair. But you are the grown up in the room and you absolutely can do hard things even when you don't want to. That doesn't mean when you're sick that you have to hit 10,000 steps. So definitely listen to your body. But sometimes the only thing you can do to get back in it is to rip off the Band-Aid and just do the next best thing.
Yeah. And tap back into that why, right? If you write down at the beginning or you record yourself saying what you're hoping to get out of it, like what you envision at the end of the challenge, I found is really helpful too. Just, okay, there was a reason I started this. What was it? And then hopping back in. And yeah, maybe if you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to day one. Okay, so let's say we're doing a 30-day declutter challenge, right? I have one of these. It's Avalanche Declutter Challenge. And so you start with 30 items and you go backwards. So let's say by day 20, you're supposed to get rid of 20 things. And you're just like, I just don't have it in me today. Okay, great. Take a day off. Maybe tomorrow you only do 10 things, right? And then the next day you do another 10 and then you hop back into 21. Like it doesn't have to be, yeah. Just remember why you're doing it in the first place. And then look around and say, how close am I? How much progress have I made? Am I proud of what I'm doing? And then hop back in there again. So yeah.
It's also sometimes helpful to think about future you. We're in March right now while we're recording. Would you in June, you want you in June to be proud of what you did in March. So do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. All right. So moms that are listening to this, if they're feeling exhausted, drained, they're constantly on the hamster wheel, what's one piece of encouragement or advice you'd love to leave them with before we start to wrap up?
I think the idea that, first off, you're never alone. There are absolutely people who are feeling just like you all over the world. And then knowing that the next best thing for you to do is to just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. You only fail when you give up, and teeny tiny baby steps will get you there. If it helps, envision the tortoise and the hare and just decide on purpose that you're going to be the tortoise and you'll get there when you get there. And that's all that really matters.
So good. Stephanie, this has been wonderful. Where can people find you?
Sure. If you're a podcast listener, I do have the Slow Living podcast, and the website is stephanieoday.com. And the book is wherever books are sold, and that's Slow Living, Cultivating a Life of Purpose in a Hustle-Driven World.
I love it. It's so good. I can't wait to grab a copy myself. But before we go, my favorite way to wrap up is with 3 rapid fire questions. So the first one is, what does clutter free mean to you?
Peace. I think for me, it's a lot of mental clutter. The house is pretty decluttered and we always know where things are. But decision fatigue, eliminating that as much as possible.
Love that. Number 2, what is making you happy right now or in this season of life?
So I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we've had a few really nice days of weather, and I'm realizing I might be solar powered. So just being able to go out in the yard and just, oh my gosh, it's just so amazing to feel the sun on my skin.
Nice. Oh, so true. And number 3, what is a goal you have for yourself this year? We talked about goals a lot. What's one you have?
So our entire family, so multi-generational family, is doing a trip to Hawaii this year. And the goal is to get through it with a smile on my face and realize that there's a lot of humans here that I can't control. But what I can control is keeping myself calm and present and a smile on my face.
That is some good advice. I like it. Yeah, advice wrapped up in a goal. Very cool. All right. Thank you so much again for a wonderful episode. This has been fantastic. And absolutely check out Stephanie's book. I absolutely love your ideas on reconfiguring all of these acronyms and really turning it inward and making sure you're starting with what is it that really feels right to you, and you walking that walk, I think, is just beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, I loved this conversation with Stephanie, and I feel like it was something I actually really needed today. She has such a calming presence and a way of making slow living feel approachable and realistic, even in our very fast-paced world. And as someone who lives in Silicon Valley, like that is like the epicenter of hustle culture. So it is really impressive that she has carved out this slow living environment for herself and her family amongst the chaos. So she actually is walking the walk. But one of the biggest takeaways for me today was how important it is to ditch the pressure to constantly be achieving and instead focus on intentional progress. We could constantly be achieving and jump from one to another. She used that really interesting diet reference. And then if you're go, but you're not being consistent or intentional, you're not going to see progress and you are just going to burn yourself out. So it's a mindset shift that can truly change how we move through our days. And make sure you're downloading that worksheet that she has for you. It is really helpful to help navigate this when you're feeling unsure and not knowing where to start. And it's also a great reminder that we become most like the people we surround ourselves with. So if you are constantly around people that are glorifying busyness, complaining about motherhood, all of these kinds of things, these negative emotions that you don't want, it is easy for you to fall into that trap yourself. But if you start following people who inspire you to slow down, simplify, and focus on what truly matters, then you will begin to feel that shift too. And I hope that I am one of those people for you. I hope that you feel that coming through to me. I know Stephanie and I talked a lot, both before the interview and after the interview, of not wanting to be phony and wanting to really be authentic. So I hope that you feel that from me coming through the screen or your sound waves. All right. And so I encourage you to be intentional about what you consume. If you are into the minimalist aesthetic, follow some minimalists. If that's too extreme for you, that's fine. Follow people that are into being clutter-free, not just organizing for the sake of organizing, right? Don't fall into the organized core trap of always having to have everything so color coordinated or perfectly aligned and the refills and restocks and all that kind of stuff, okay? So just take a deep breath and follow people that really feel right for you. Slow living advocates, financial experts who encourage you to save and simplify. Swap out a shopping trip for a coffee date with a friend, right? You'll still get that companionship that you were hoping for, but your wallet will thank you, your home will thank you, and deep down, the stress level will thank you as well. These small shifts can add up in a very big way. All right. But I would love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you the most this episode? You can let me know by commenting on my latest post on Instagram or sharing the episode in your stories. You can tag me. I'm at Wannabe Clutter Free so that I can see it. Joining the conversation in the Wannabe Minimalist family group on Facebook is always great. We'll have a discussion thread for the episode. leaving a quick rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts, especially Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. It helps so much. And then sharing this episode with a friend who might need a little more calm and clarity in their life. And of course, a huge thank you to Stephanie for joining me today and sharing her insights on slow living. If you want to learn more about her work, her book, or her slow living podcast, head over to wannabeclutterfree.com/251 for all the links and details and that worksheet that she offered as well. So again, wannabeclutterfree.com/251. And as always, thank you so much for being here and making this podcast part of your weekly routine. I'll see you back here next week for another episode. Until then, take care, embrace the slow, and remember, I believe in you. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.